All right, enough of that. Enough of that. Hey, nobody's in the chat just yet, but welcome to Pay Me No Mind, another live stream. Definitely going to get into some bite down boxing, and I want to welcome tonight's co-host. We're not a guest, co-host or colleague, and Caryn Tate.
Thanks for having me, Wood. I'm happy to be here. Appreciate it.
I appreciate your time tonight. Obviously, it's another holiday. Now that we have social media, all of these holidays get a lot of shine, and it's International Women's Day. So I don't know if that's a happy or I don't know what the Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. I don't know what it is.
I totally get that. Yeah, and you're right. It's one of those holidays that we didn't really hear much about until the social media age. But yeah, that's all right.
Did you get a free latte or
wouldn't that be nice? I don't get anything for it. I should get some free stuff at least.
I mean, on Veterans Day, I get free burritos from Chipotle. I mean, I get
you got the hookup.
Yeah, I get cheese conies. I get a free lunch at Buffalo Wild Wings. I mean, that Veterans Day is something else.
So on Veterans Day, do you just go around from one restaurant to another restaurant, getting all your meals and coffees and?
You're damn right. I do. I take advantage of all of it.
I would too. I mean, you earned it, right? And yeah, for this holiday, I don't get anything. I don't know.
See, we might have to contact the International Women's Day Committee then and get some sponsors on board, to get you. It should at least be a free cup of coffee or something.
Something. A card, something.
Something. Mm-hmm. So look, Caryn has been writing boxing online for a long time. I came on into the game writing and doing my thing back in 2016. And I think you were already farther along than I was. I don't even remember how we linked up, but Caryn has been writing for a number of different sites. She's commentated some fights out in the great Northwest, working with Steve Forbes.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
She's commentated some of his events. I'm a big local boxing fan and club show fan. I try to do my thing here in the Midwest. So that's dope to hear you in that role. You've also covered a number of big time fights. Seen you in the locker room with the referee Jag Reese and during the reading of the rules and whatnot at big time fights. Also moved over in the last year or two. You've been putting up some articles over at the PBC's website, interviewing different fighters for them ahead of their events and whatnot. And then you've also been with boxingnoir.com. I know we were together for a short time on overtimeheroics.net. And then where are you now?
So yeah, you covered it basically. Right now I write for the premierboxingchampions.com website, and interviews with fighters and trainers. I actually just started a column on that site that I'm really excited about, where I speak with coaches, and that's specifically just talking boxing fundamentals with coaches of fighters who have fights coming up. And that's a really cool, exciting column. I've talked with people like Derek James already, and that's up on the site. I'm also writing for boxingnoir.com. And just freelancing wherever I can get work, basically.
Doing more than me. I'm just stuck at bitedownboxing.com. A quick question. Not really to dig too much into, the challenges of women in boxing and whatnot. I hope you've been treated respectfully, and I know you work very hard to cover the details. Like I said, you talk about a lot of technique. You're pretty much, I'm saying this respectfully and in admiration, but you're anal about scoring, scoring fight, scoring criteria. So I don't know if we'll need to get into that today, but you do cover, you are steadfast in folks needing to stick. And that's, there may not be a more critical area in the game than proper scoring of fights and rounds and whatnot. So I'm really not being I'm not joking around about that, but you will go to the criteria.
I sure do. Yeah, I sure do. And to touch on that for a second, you're right. It's an area that I think, and the whole reason I started researching and talking with judges and referees about officiating and the scoring criteria for judging and all of that was because early on, I saw so much variation in how judges were scoring and what they were scoring for, and I heard people saying all kinds of different things. You'll hear commentators say, it's about what you like, and you never know what the judges are looking at or what they're scoring for. You hear that kind of stuff all the time, and I just early on felt like that can't be right. That can't be normal. Like, what kind of sport, is it where nobody quite knows what the criteria is and how you win, right? And that was really the impetus for me doing research into that and learning more about it. And I'm so glad I did. And, a year and a half ago, I guess, I attended a judging and referee seminar led by Jack Reese and Pat Russell. That was an official course for people trying to become referees and judges. And it was a phenomenal learning experience. And, it's just great to kind of bring all of the understanding together about the scoring criteria, and that there is a proper way to apply the criteria. I think most people just lump it together if they know what it is at all. And that's actually not correct. So I'm just very passionate about that because it affects fighters' careers, and hence their lives. And so it really bugs me when I see that, scoring criteria isn't being applied correctly. It's like there is a way to do this. It's not a mystery, and it's very much out there. So it's easy to learn about for judges, of course, and just for fans and media.
What I just mentioned was, you attended some of the rules reading with Jack Reese to fighters. I think that was even to the Deontay Wilder Fury fight.
Yeah, I was backstage for the Wilder Fury 1 and also for Spence Porter. Yeah.
Spence Porter. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that they do that for the fighters. Do you think that it may need to be done for the judges? Because I hear this all the time. Regardless of what happened in the round, and it's 4 areas, it's 4 criteria, right, for scoring.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I hear it all the time when we get to fight night. Whoever landed the best punch won the round. It gets that simple sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of, I think a lot of people kind of misinterpret the criteria, and that's the thing, and that's part of why I got so anal, as you put it, about how the criteria are applied, is because
passionate. Let's go
passionate. There you go. Is because you'll hear it, basically, if you lump all 4 criteria together and you just you apply it all at once, you could basically score around any which way and have a justification for it, right?
Right.
That makes no sense to me. And so when I started researching and learning from judges and whatnot how to do this properly, I began to understand. So the primary criterion is clean punching, right? And you'll often hear people say, like you say, oh, but that was a close round, and it came down to, oh, this guy stole the round in the last 30 seconds or whatever. He landed a nice shot. And the truth is, it should be about, effective clean punching, right? So the only time that's really going to come into play is if everything else is so close that you can't really tell a difference. Like the guys landed similar number of punches, similar effect delivered by the punches. They were both effectively aggressive. They both displayed great ring generalship, and their defense was all on point. So if those things are all even, then we can say, okay, yeah, one shot changed the round, and I had to give it to this guy because it looked like it had good effect. But usually it's not that hard. Usually, right, it's easy to, if you apply the criteria in order, which is how you're supposed to do it, starting with clean punching, you apply that, and you apply that only. And if, typically in a round, there's a clear winner in that, with that criterion. It's only if the clean punching and effective punching is even, that you move on then to effective aggressiveness, right? So it's the rare fight and the rare round, in my opinion, where it's that close and like it really does come down to a punch or two. That's pretty rare.
Right. And I tip my cap to you because I talk about it here on the channel sometimes that I get when we were just talking offline, I get tired of all the damn complaining and nobody ever goes and does anything about it. And boxing is a sport where you can get involved. You know, you can go get involved with your state athletic commission like you did. You can go to the you can go take the scoring, the officiating. Actually, the class is dope because you can get certified to be a referee and a judge in the same weekend. And then you can actually go and judge and get your career going and get your reputation, all that stuff in the works. And you can work yourself up to being involved in bigger fights once you pay your dues.
That's true.
And no one does that. And people just sit there because they're too busy going and complaining on Twitter versus going and actually being pragmatic about it and getting involved. And like I said, you can go to these local fights and get paid decent money. And like I've said, it's some fighters that at the local shows that need competent judging there because they're trying to go to the next level. And I was at a fight a year and a half ago, and it was one judge, one official judge, and the other two judges were doing double duty. They were the EMT team. They didn't know nothing about boxing.
Oh, that's horrible.
And it was a heavyweight from Cincinnati. And a guy, his opponent was just wildly swinging for the whole 4 rounds or 6 rounds. And the guy from Cincinnati was trying to box. And because the dude was letting his hands go and throwing all of these haymakers, the two EMT people, they gave him, well, I think one scored it for him and then the other one had it even. And the Cincinnati guy did all the clean work, all the effective work, all the real boxing. Wow. And that goes as a draw on his record when any regular fan who watches boxing on Friday and Saturday night would have given that to the Cincinnati fighter, but no one goes and gets certified to be a judge.
And you're talking exactly about the reasons I get so passionate about this. You see stuff like that and it's heartbreaking for that fighter, right? And thankfully he got a draw. At least he didn't take a loss for it. But you're right. You do often see that, especially at small shows. And it's just, it doesn't have to be that way. And it, more importantly, shouldn't be that way. Like there's no reason. And you're right. Some of the judging I see, that's a good example of the story you just told, but you just feel like, how are these people, being paid by the commission or by the promoters, but how are they being hired by the commission to cover a fight? How are they learning their craft? And that's, again, those are the questions that I was always asking, because I felt like, man, some of the stuff you see is just mind blowing. And yeah, I think you're right that most people don't do anything about it. And to be fair, like maybe some people don't know that you can do something about it, but I think the really important thing to do at this point is to talk about and educate the fans on the scoring criteria and how it's supposed to be applied. It's supposed to be applied in order. You don't just lump it all together, and call out when judges don't do a good job. I think that's important. Instead of, you'll often see commentators kind of writing it off like, well, I guess they just liked this other guy's work. You can't do that. That's not okay. Right. And if it's a super close fight, okay, but it's usually not. And so I feel like, they need to be held accountable. And while we can't, make the state commissions be responsible and do the right thing and, make the judges accountable for their scoring and their judging jobs, we can put pressure out there. Like the more people know, the more educated fans are, the better educated media is. We can keep talking about it and make it relevant and make the commissions feel like, oh boy, I better do a better job, hiring my judges and holding them accountable. And, I often say, like, what I want to see is when I see a poor scorecard, I just wish that, like, Monday morning, that commission would call that judge to come into their office. Okay, walk me through every round of this fight. Why did you score it like this? And no offense, but I think any good judge should be able to do that and do it, without any, stress or like worrying. You should be able to do that because you're justifying the reasons you saw that you felt that this person applied the criteria better than the other person, right? But I don't see that. I don't see the commissions holding the judges accountable. And you see judges who turn in, very poor cards, and you'll see them appear on more and more shows. It doesn't affect them at all, and I just don't think it's right, man. They're damaging fighters' careers, and as I've learned over my time in the sport, you're not only like handing a guy a loss or a draw when they actually got a win, you're affecting their paycheck.
Right.
I've learned over time that, like, it goes into these guys' contracts that, once you have a loss, it pulls down the amount of money you make in your next fight, and you have to kind of start over from scratch, to work your way back up. And it's not right if it's because of, some poor judgment by judges.
Right. And like I'm saying, that fight that I watched, that I was just talking about, the heavyweight fight, in 2020, that draw could have kept that. Sorry. They had a couple heavyweight fights that went on ESPN because they were getting some work for like a Jared Anderson.
Yeah.
And then they had the Vito Guianello guy on there. That's taken away, like you said, that's taking away your negotiating power for your money. And then it's kind of robbing guys of better opportunities.
Exactly.
But
It's no small thing. And I just wish that it started being treated that way in the sport, by media and whatnot. And to, I would just love to see more accountability, for the judges and people, applying pressure on that. If you're not applying the criteria correctly, then why are you judging? It's as
right.
simple as that. I feel for people, in that role. I know it's a difficult job, and it's very thankless. Like, I think when you do a good job, right, nobody notices you.
Right.
It's only if you do a poor job, and we're all human. We're all going to have an off night or something. But, to be clear, I'm talking about judges where it's, such a poor card that, like you said about the fight you saw, where it's like, wow, anybody, if you know anything about boxing, you know who won the fight. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about, where you start to question how qualified this judge is. And I just feel like, if we can keep kind of beating that drum, hopefully the commissions will start to be a little bit more mindful about the judges they're hiring. Maybe, I don't know, do more frequent training if they need to, and things like that. I think that's just so important. It can't be overstated. And to be honest, I feel like it's both judging and refereeing. Those jobs are so difficult, and there's so much responsibility on your shoulders that I feel like you better take it seriously if you're doing it.
Right.
And so, yeah, if they're not, and if they're just kind of, filling out a scorecard, I have a major problem with that.
Right. Where I was going though, and we'll get to this, the Shields and the care card after this. But I was just wondering, without trying to dig into the treatment of women in the game a whole lot. Like I said, I know this is International Women's Day and whatnot. We just had an historic event Friday night. But I saw an article maybe a month and a half ago on ringtv.com, and they had maybe 5 or 6 females who've been involved in boxing, mostly media women, media members. And a couple of them had some run-ins and some things, that shocked me a little bit. And they spoke on it in the article, and I was like, oh, okay, men doing dumb men shit as usual was new. I'm just wondering, have your experiences been, you're here 4 or 5 years later, decent.
Sorry, you cut out there towards the end, Wood. What was the rest of you said, have I ever had
I was
any
asking,
run-ins?
have your experience in covering the sport been pretty decent?
Yeah, I'm happy to say that, yeah, I've been treated very well. And I also feel like I want to give a little shout out to fighters and coaches. They especially are just tremendous as far as treating a female reporter the same as anybody else. That all they care about is if you know your stuff, right? And if you know your stuff, they don't care what gender you are. And that's been my experience basically 100% with fighters and trainers. And that's been tremendous. But yeah, even on the business side, yeah, I've been treated very well. I know obviously it's not uncommon to hear of women having a difficult time in a field that's full of men. But yeah, thankfully that hasn't happened to me.
Okay, well that's good. That's good. Like I said, I didn't make light of what I read in that article, but you know things happen, and I know again on fight nights, being in the back area, and you know there's a lot of adrenaline, a lot of it turns into a bit of a party. You know, you got media people trying to do their thing, right? People and come away with the best content. You know, it's a lot of stuff going on.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
anyway.
But yeah, I mean, to me, it's always been about I try to know boxing first and foremost. I want to be sure that I understand, you know, what the fighters are doing and how they're doing it. And I feel like everything else kind of falls into place after that.
Yeah. Sadly, one time I was at Barclays, and it was a female from the site that one of the sites that I contribute to, and I just met her. I didn't even know she was going to be there, and the dress and stuff that she had on, and everything, you know, we're all in front of Keith Thurman, and we're all doing our thing, and then I look over at her and I'm like, somebody doesn't look like we're here on the same job, but you know, whatever. And
That's hilarious.
that was the only event that I encountered her at. I don't even think I saw any more content from her after that night. But it was okay, whatever.
That's funny.
Anyway, I wanted to get to Friday night's card. Did you buy it? Did you buy the pay-per-view?
I sure did. Yeah, I definitely
Okay.
did.
Okay. I'm gonna be honest with you. I am going to be honest in my opinion, but I'm gonna talk about it 360. I didn't think the card was horrible, but I am gonna give my opinion, and I'm not trying to bash just for the sake of bashing. But what were your thoughts on it?
Yeah.
The
I
quality
mean,
of the card.
the quality of the card, I feel like by all accounts from what I heard, the card was put together fairly quickly, and I think they did a really good job at putting together a card for women's boxing in particular, where they just don't have as many fighters to pull from as male boxing, to put together some pretty good fights and some decent fights. And yeah, I think if they had been backed by a big player, by like Showtime or somebody like that, the card may have looked different. But I think given the fact that Claressa and her promoter basically put this on themselves, and took the risk and put it together quickly on short notice. I think, for instance, Marlon Esparza had 10 days notice before her fight. I think they did a really good job, and I was happy with it. I mean, the main reason I bought the card, and the main reason I was super excited about it, was all about Claressa Shields. I mean, I've been a huge fan of her skills for years. I've watched her since her first Olympics in 2012. And I mean, she's such a tremendous fighter. Just, her skills are special. And that, coupled with the fact that she was fighting a fight where if she won, it would be her making history, like the very first fighter ever to become undisputed in 2 different divisions. That was huge. So that, combined with the fact that I love to watch her fight, definitely I was going to support that.
Okay. Was there anything? I mean, and this is not trying to bash the card, the event, and take anything away from it. we want certain things and certain fights and certain things included in all cards and all events week to week. I'm just asking, was there anything that kind of disappointed you that didn't come to fruition as we were watching the build up and some of the press releases, the way the card was shaping up originally and what we got on fight night? Is there anything that you're like, damn, I really wish, so and so would have made it?
I can't say that there was anything like that for me. Again, the whole the whole basis of my excitement for that event was all about Claressa Shields. So everything else, I didn't have any expectations really. I was just open to whatever they did and however they put that together. And Claressa, more than delivered for me. I thought, her performance was just phenomenal. Like she looked as good as I've ever seen her look as a pro. And she just keeps getting better and doing great things. And I'll say another thing too about this event that I haven't heard a lot of people talk about, which is I think it's super inspirational because whatever the reasons were behind it, Claressa was with Showtime for several years and several of her fights, and that didn't come together for this fight. So the fact that she decided, you know what, I'm going to stop waiting. I'm going to just put together a card, put this on as an independent pay-per-view. I thought that was super inspirational. Like it's a good message to anybody who's looking to accomplish anything that like, hey, you may not always get opportunities handed to you, and sometimes you got to just make it happen. And I thought she just served as a great inspiration there. And I haven't seen a lot of people talk about that, unfortunately, but I think that's really important.
Yeah, that was one of my selling points, and that was one of the things that I talked about again with me just talking, being on my soapbox about people to quit complaining about the judging and the refereeing and actually go look into becoming a judge and a referee and or getting involved with your state athletic commission and being a part of the change that you want to see.
Right.
That was one thing that I was adamant, or that was one thing that I focused on going into the couple of videos that I did ahead of it was I was getting a little tired of her complaining. And then like a week and a half later, the fight was announced and it was pay-per-view. And I was like, salute to you. That's what you got to do. I would just say the only thing that kind of disappointed me was and it's but it's for boxing reasons. I was really hopeful that the Raquel Miller fight would have stayed on the card. And that was only because in hopes that, not knowing what the future holds for Claressa, maybe it would have been a chance for some of us to get an eye on a potential future opponent. So from that perspective, I was hopeful that Raquel Miller would have had a fight on the card, because I think one of the things where what they're trying to do with Claressa, her and her business team, I think one of the easy knocks on her is that we don't know a lot about these opponents. We don't see these opponents before we see them face her. And I just think when we come to invest our time and invest our money, we kind of want, and you've talked about it before when they don't, I think for the Caleb Truax fight against Caleb Plant. I'm sorry, the Caleb Plant against Caleb Truax. Like Truax really didn't show up in the commercials going into that fight. It was just Caleb Plant. Yeah. And I'm like, he is fighting somebody, when we see the other guy.
Yeah.
And so I think from that perspective right there, I was a little disappointed in that. There was one other fight that I would have liked to have either maybe seen Mary McGee out of Indiana, with her being in the Midwest. I thought it would have been great to get her on. And then also I'm a big fan of Tierra Brown. She's been kind of stuck outside of boxing a little bit, but I understand that at some point, like you said, there was no major player backing this, and it's going to become extremely difficult because everybody can't come in there and box for, $2,000,
Exactly.
Want to get paid.
Exactly. And, like I mentioned, I think it was put together on fairly short notice. And just what I know about the business side of boxing, right? Whether it's women or men, you're going to have fighters who might sign up and then something changes or they get injured or whatever reason, and they aren't able to be on the card after all. So I hear you, and I feel like, yeah, it would be great to see certain fighters on it, but I feel like this was hopefully the first of many. I mean, to me, it's exciting because it's the start of something new for women's boxing, and hopefully it does well and they can just build off of it. I know Claressa, I've heard her speak about that a little bit before the fight happened. And basically that's what she's hoping for, that, they can really start something for the sport. And so I feel like, the things you're looking for, hopefully we can see that on a future card.
Right. And like I said, very rarely will I go to bash something or criticize something without telling the whole story. So like I said, I just said, for very selfish reasons and looking down the road, I had hoped those things would have happened. They didn't. I still paid for it. And it was what it was. One question before we get to your thoughts on the fight, the main event. Production wise and presentation wise, what's your thought on I was thinking earlier today, like right now, these social media YouTubers and whatnot are being the main event, and they're being, incorporated into these cards. I'm starting to think, like, if we're going to see more of these cards pop up on alternative platforms, or whatnot, why can't, like this, like, why couldn't the Boxing Voice or Ellie Sekbach or Fight Hype, why couldn't they have incorporated some of these guys into a show like this? I think it would have been as much. I think it might have brought to the table like maybe 3,500 or 5,000 extra buys if some of these people who do this work online would have been included, and they would have told their fan bases, hey, we're going to have this 10-minute segment. We're going to have this 15-minute segment. Like, you're working these social media people, these YouTubers into these main events. Why can't you let some of these guys who do this hard work on the internet, why can't they be incorporated into the show?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I mean, that's an interesting point about the numbers that they might bring in. I think there's some validity there, but yeah, I don't know. And on the other hand, it kind of like the card itself, like we were just talking about, like you can only have so many people involved in it. You can only have so many people on the card or whatever. So, there's that aspect as well. But yeah, it's a good point.
And like I said, I'm just thinking outside the box, and if we're all going to start doing different stuff and trying new things, I just think that's one that there really could be some payoff. Yeah. If, like I said, some of if you're talking about the YouTubers bringing their 2 million followers, their 10 million followers, if you're talking about them bringing something to the table, like, again, and I don't have any, I can't tell you that I'm a big fan of Sekbach and the other people, but I mean, if they have, if you look at the subscriber numbers for some of these channels, some of these individuals, I think it would be worth taking a look at considering doing that. But that's just my thoughts. The fight, the main event. The care, I looked up a couple of fights of the care going into the fight. I thought she could box pretty decent. I mean, she jabbed well, had a good motor on her. She was a champion. She was undefeated. Technically though, I mean, I didn't see her being able to outbox Claressa for 6 out of 10 rounds. But I thought she didn't do a bad job. I just thought, she was kind of soft pretty quickly and didn't have a third game plan to go to, and it just was what it was. But what was your breakdown or thoughts on the fight?
Yeah, I mean, I thought, like you, I thought Dakar, she's a good fighter, and to be clear for people who may not know her, she's came into the fight not only undefeated 17-0, she was a longtime champion. I think she had been the champion at that weight since 2018, I think. So, she's a really good fighter. She's accomplished. She's not just some random fighter that they picked for Claressa and, to look good against or something. And I feel like, for people who may not know her, that's an important point. So taking that into account, the fact that Claressa came in there and looked amazing against a fighter like that, to me was just really awesome to see. And Claressa, like I mentioned earlier, she just continues to improve fight after fight. And she's doing it against fighters who are the best possible opposition for her. Like these unified champions and things like that. And like Christina Hammer had been a champion for a very long time. And going into that fight, to be fair, people can be a little selective about their memory, but going into that fight, a lot of people thought Christina Hammer was going to be a really tough out for Claressa. And a lot of people even were picking Christina Hammer, and it ended up being this one-sided fight. And for this Daker fight as well, I felt like it was a similar thing where people may not know who she is, but she's a longtime champion, respected fighter. And like you, I thought she's a good boxer. She utilizes movement really well, has a really good jab, and is good at just giving her opponent so much to look at that they can't really keep up, right? And so the fact that Claressa came in there and the way Claressa fought, I thought was just tremendous. Like the fact she fought very flat-footed and was very still, which I thought was just so cool. And I thought it was a really smart tactic against a boxer like Daker, who, like I just mentioned, moves a lot and gives her opponent a lot to think about. Claressa was like, it seemed to me anyway, that her game plan was, let me slow everything down and not give you anything to pick up, right? To pick up off of. And she just did a tremendous job with that. And in the very first round, Daker, being a southpaw, was doing her thing, and Claressa just, reached out and bam, caught her with like this really clean right hand right to the face. And from then on, I felt like Daker was just like, it looked to me like she was like, I don't know how that happened. I don't know how you caught me there. And see, it kind of just went on like that for her, to me, and throughout the 10 rounds. And it was like Claressa just was able to time her, and she knew where she was going to be and what she was going to do. And another thing I'll mention that I thought was just beautiful from Shields was the catching and countering. Like, you don't see a ton of fighters do that anymore these days. And she not only did it, but she did it beautifully, and often like would catch and counter with the same hand, which is like, elite level skill that you just don't see much. And so that kind of stuff, I just had me riveted for the fight. I thought she did a tremendous job. And again, this is not, some fighter off the street or something. This was an accomplished champion that Claressa did this to, that just, completely whitewashed. And I just thought it was an amazing performance. I thought she looked tremendous.
Yeah, I thought the 2 left hooks that she landed in the first round that Daker didn't even see. It was like, what the hell just hit me?
Exactly.
I think that caught her off guard a little bit too.
Yeah.
I'm imagining you agreed with the scorecards on this one.
Absolutely. Yeah. As I recall, it was, they were all for Claressa every round. I don't see how you could have it any other way. And it's no offense to Daker. I mean, she's a good fighter. She tried her best, and that was the thing. And so to me, the fact that an accomplished champion, undefeated, came in there and tried everything she could, and it wasn't anywhere near enough to get to Claressa's level, shows, how special Shields is. And I just feel like, I don't see how you could give a round to Daker though in that fight.
What do you think? And I've credited Claressa for the steady improvement, being willing to try new things and implement new things, and studying the best men fighters, or the best aspects, the best qualities of the best fighters, and trying to add that stuff to her game. I think it's just giving her this gap above the field. But what do you think is kind of giving her that separation? that's going to make it hard for the field to, to win 3 rounds.
Right. To be honest, I think it's her pedigree. Yeah, she is great at continuing to improve and, like you said, learning from other great fighters. But I think what really separates her from a lot of other fighters that you see, and I'll say a lot of male fighters too, is her pedigree. Like people say it and they hear it, but I don't think it quite sinks in. She's won 2 Olympic gold medals. That's extremely special, extremely rare. And obviously she's the only American boxer to ever do that back to back. But what that says about how good she was in the amateurs is huge. And I feel like just the fact that she was able to start boxing at a young age as a kid and develop her skills as she grew, like male fighters do all the time, right? Generally, most male boxers, they start when they're kids, they get a good coach, and they learn in the amateurs, and they grow and they develop and then become a pro, etc. But female fighters, historically, have not had the luxury basically to build their skills in the amateurs or even have an amateur career. So the fact that Claressa and I'll also mention Michaela Mayer, who was a 2016 Olympian as well. But these fighters, you're seeing a different skill set, and I feel like it's the pedigree, it's the amateur experience, it's the fact that they've been able to basically build themselves up in boxing the way you're supposed to. Right. Historically, most female fighters have had to kind of box on the side. They have to hold down a day job or whatever because they aren't getting paid much at all if they do get fights, and certainly don't have amateur careers. And I've heard from different female fighters, even just they can't even, or didn't used to be able to get into gyms even because they were female for no other reason. So, and I know that still goes on, but hopefully not quite as much. But, my point being, how are you supposed to learn your craft if you can't get into your local boxing gym? They won't even let you in. How are you supposed to find a good coach? How are you supposed to build your craft? That combined with, like I mentioned, I have a day job and I'm boxing on the side in my spare time. That's a really tough road. And I feel like people like Claressa and Michaela, who thankfully, have better opportunities and are able to build their skill set, that's really the difference maker. And I suspect that after this year's Olympics, in the next few years, you're going to see a new crop of female fighters, and you're going to have a whole new level of skill across female boxing.
Right. I agree. I know she's talking about the MMA move in June.
Yeah.
She has to do what she has to do to continue to earn money, and she's engaged. I think she bought a house. I mean, she has to live. So I hate to see her do it, but it looks like that might happen. But sticking to the boxing side, what's your outlook for what's next? Do you think anybody seriously from 147 considers, obviously Katie Taylor? This weekend we'll have the undisputed fight between Jessica McCaskill and Cecilia Braekhus. If Braekhus was to win, she probably retires. But going down, she said she would try to do it. She just needs to lose her butt. She did, make the weight at 153.6, I believe. Or do you think maybe waiting for something to happen at 154 or going back up to face Savannah Miller? I mean,
Marshall.
Marshall. I'm sorry, Marshall. What would you like to see happen?
I mean, I think she's done everything she can do at, the higher weights. I mean, she became undisputed at middleweight. Now she's undisputed at 54. I don't see, why she needs to hang around and fight someone else. Savannah Marshall, I would definitely like to see them fight down the line, but I suspect, they're trying to kind of build that up to be a bigger fight down the road, and hopefully they do make it. But yeah, I mean, honestly, I think Claressa having to squeeze down to welterweight is a shame if they have to do that. But they might have to. I mean, I just don't see anyone at the higher weights who can really give her much of a much of a difficult fight. And yeah, Katie going up to welterweight seems like a stretch to me. I mean, she's a smaller fighter, but you know, you do what you got to do. And to be fair, female boxers have done that forever. They've, you know, bounced around different weights and stuff just to make good fights or the best fights they could make. So it might be that she has to do that. But yeah, I guess realistically, it looked to me like she made 154 pretty well. I saw her tweet that she was eating and drinking the day before the weigh-in, so I feel like she's clearly was making it healthy. If she can safely make welterweight, I would love to see her fight the winner of Braekhus McCaskill. But yeah, other than that, it's tough to say. You know, I think that is definitely probably the best fight that can be made for her in the near future. I think Katie, while she's a big name and a great fighter, she's just so small that I don't know that I feel like if they met at welterweight, whoever wins the fight, people would criticize, right? Like if Katie won, you know, oh, well, Claressa was weight drained. Or if Claressa won, oh, well, she's being a weight bully. And, you know, that's why she beat Katie Taylor. So I feel like it's kind of a no-win situation in that regard. But of course, skill-wise, I would love to see them in the ring together.
Yeah, and I think I keep forgetting that Taylor is more of 140. And honestly, I like to see her and Serrano fight before I'd like to see her try to go up to 147 for the reasons that you just mentioned. I feel like boxing fan and boxing media, like you said, they'd find an angle to say why that fight was some BS.
And yeah, I totally agree about Serrano Taylor. I would love to see that fight, and I really hope they make that again.
Yeah, that was one of the bigger disappointments from 2020.
Yeah,
That fight
definitely.
fell.
Definitely. So yeah, hopefully they make that. I'd love to see that fight.
For anybody in the chat, we are going to move on to some other stuff. And I said I was going to open up the phone, the line, if you want to call in and talk about any of the, you know, the events from this past weekend or the fights from this past weekend, or if you have a thought on it. A hot topic when it comes to women is the whole 3-minute thing. I can get your thoughts on that. For me personally, I don't think the game is developed enough. I don't think there's enough of a field or a pool of talent. And I think while it might be desirable for Claressa Shields and where she is, I don't see a lot of other fights consistently where that third minute is going to make the fights look better. I hate to say it, and I know some of the thoughts are out there with Claressa that, like, in some of these rounds, if she had another 25 seconds or another 35 seconds or another minute, she might have gotten a TKO or knocked somebody out. I get it, but I'm just saying, and I think that heavyweight fight, Danielle Perkins and Monica Harrison, is a perfect example of we've just got a ways to go before that extra minute isn't going to make the game look worse for a lot of the fights that are being put together. So that's kind of where I am. I know I would love to see Claressa get it. But again, like I said, I just think until, like you said, we might need 1 or 2 more Olympic cycles and some new bodies to come in there before that third minute looks great across the board.
Yeah, that's a really good point. First, I want us to be, before I forgot to mention it, I don't know how many people know this, but in Nevada, female fighters can actually fight 3 minutes. Layla McCarter actually got that changed to her credit. But I think both both fighters have to agree to it, but they can do that. So that's something cool. But yeah, as far as changing, I think though, I'm definitely in favor of 3 minutes. The main reason for me, honestly, it's, you know, you hear people like Claressa talk about the equality factor, and I think there is something to that. I think it's easier for promoters or networks to pay women less because, oh, well, you're in there for less time. It's an easy out for that reason. But for me, I think it's become more about stamina. I think, stamina and energy and just, performance down the stretch are such big parts of boxing that I feel like, it's going to help emphasize the winner a little bit more. And I hear your point about, how many fights in women's boxing do we need that with? But I feel like it may tell you something even about the fighter that you think is going to dominate. What if they struggle with the 3-minute rounds for 12 rounds instead of 2-minute 10 rounds? So I think, that's such a major part of the game. I would like to see it for that reason as well. But yeah, I suspect that, yeah, if we start getting 3-minute rounds for women across the board, you would see a lot more knockouts.
Yeah, like I'm on the fence with it, and like I said, there are some Katie Taylor fights have been excellent. I saw an excellent fight with Mary McGee and a lady and this lady from Australia. I can't remember her name. Leonardo too has a great engine, and a lot of pressure in her. Again, like I said though, we get outside of 4 or 5 fighters. Michaela Mayer has a great motor, and so on and so forth. But that's the problem when you can list these fighters on your hands on one hand, and then the others you don't know how that third minute is going to look. Terry Harper has looked pretty good. Like I said, I've seen it. If they went to it, it'd be all the better, in my opinion. But I'm just saying, I don't know. That's just I wouldn't oppose it. I'm just thinking that again, some of the other fights that I see as we need to start filling the ranks and getting more talent into the pool is my first concern. But I was going to mention that that's one thing that is one option out there for Claressa is maybe she needs to take the show to Rio or is it Rio? That's not Reno. I'm sorry, Reno.
Oh yeah.
Or Vegas, but
yeah,
that's here nor there.
I hear you too, your point about the 3 minutes. On the other hand, I feel like, if it is one-sided, what's the harm in giving them an extra minute in the round? And again, they're probably more likely to get the stoppage if the fight is one-sided. So I feel like, why not give them that? I know that one complaint I've seen or one mark against that I've seen from different people is there have been some studies that make it seem as though women might be more apt to get concussions and things along those lines. I, have only done a little bit of research on that, but from what I've seen, my main questions about the studies I've seen and all is that they haven't done them with female combat fighters that I've seen. I think these were soccer players and things like that. So completely different. And one of my questions about that was like, well, what if we're talking about female fighters and, athletes who prepare to take punches, right? They strengthen their neck muscles and all of that. So would that change things? And I don't think that we've seen that in a study yet. I would like to see that first before I make up my mind about that. But yeah, I think mostly for me, it becomes about the stamina thing. I think that could make the fights more interesting.
And I'm with when I first started looking at that issue, my main thing was it's very challenging for the women to have like a balanced attack, or even earlier in the fight, if they would want to focus on a body attack for a few rounds. It takes time to figure out how to get inside or how to attack the body. We see men fighters got to warm up a few rounds and get comfortable with how to do that. And so with that 2 minutes, it does speed up what I'm watching. Like it's almost like, well, I can't commit to the body. I got to get back up to the head.
Exactly.
Well, I like it kind of puts them on this bad clock for me, but they they should be training 2-minute rounds in practice, in camp. But I get it. I do want to move on. One thing that came out, I just got a press release earlier. They said the numbers for the pay-per-view buys were encouraging to this point. Obviously, if they're not sharing the numbers, that can add to scrutiny and skepticism and whatnot. I'm not really too concerned with that. I paid my money on Friday night and I'm done with it. Whatever they got to do. I'm imagining though that about 25,000 is probably what they were hoping for as the break even to make this thing work. And like we all have to keep in mind, like you said, this was the first time.
Yeah.
You need to set a baseline. You had to do it. And I think one saying that I've heard, you gotta, if the baby is ugly, you gotta tell people the baby was ugly. Now they're not gonna tell us, only 5,000 people bought it or 6,000 or whatever, but the people behind the scenes that know, they get that baseline. And
Yeah.
we see what they go do next. We see how future cards get built out, or we see who gets involved with hosting it, or airing it. If Showtime comes back, Showtime did come out and say that they looked forward to working with her again in the future. That the door definitely wasn't closed. I'm gonna be honest, in my heart of hearts, 25,000 sounds high, but hey, if that's what actually the 25,000 came out of the Yahoo article, which is where I was going next.
Oh, okay.
Yahoo had an article out there about mentioning that the number could be going towards 25,000 for the pay-per-view buys. So, you can do some quick math and come up to a number and see whatever. What I wanted to ask you about also in that Yahoo article was the fact that Fight Pass, UFC Fight Pass, and Lou DiBella, they are putting together a women's series that will be over there on Fight Pass, trying to do either 3 or 4 events per year. Also, just a little background on that. One reason why Claressa didn't fight until this past Friday was Lou DiBella was actually in the process of trying to put together like a real all-star women's card before the end of 2020, and it just didn't come together. But Claressa was supposed to be on there, and some of DiBella's other bigger names were going to be on there, and it never came to fruition. But he kept fighting the good fight, and now it looks like this UFC Fight Pass is going to pick it up, and I'm excited about that. I think
it's great.
In my opinion, I think it has been shameful what hasn't been happening in the States when we've been seeing some pretty good women's action on the zone, and what they've been doing in the UK, and just the reception to it has been great. I look online sometimes and I see some of the comments about women's boxing, and it is a little disheartening. But what's your thoughts on UFC Fight Pass stepping up?
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, I've heard people criticize boxing being over at UFC Fight Pass, that it's a UFC centered stream, obviously, but I feel like wherever boxing can get, and honestly, it's in some ways it's better if it goes somewhere where people aren't maybe first and foremost boxing fans. I feel like those are the people we need to try to reach, not people who are already boxing fans. So I think it's great, and especially for women's boxing, where they, as you mentioned, there just isn't a ton of support and network time and things like that that they need to build as a sport. So I feel like wherever they can get airtime, that's awesome. And hopefully, because it's associated with UFC, hopefully the fighters can get paid a little bit of money. That'd be great.
Yeah, and it looks like the first card is going to feature Heather Hardy.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
She's moving up to lightweight, I believe.
Okay.
And then, like I said, if you look at DiBella's roster of women, he does have a lot of solid fighters over there. And then I think, if they're going to make that commitment to it, it's a chance to bring in other fighters that aren't signed with him. And so I think it's a good deal. I don't know. I don't know if the entire card for all of them is going to be all females, or if they're going to mix some men in, some younger fighters in here and there. I don't know, but I just think it's a decent development. And
Yeah.
I'm also I'm a proponent of more platforms getting involved with boxing, like you just mentioned.
Yeah, for sure. There's no downside to that, really.
Right.
And especially again with female boxers, they're struggling to get fights at all. They're struggling to get any kind of real pay at all, much less, trying to be on a network or a live stream where fans are going to see them fight. And like you mentioned, a lot of Lou DiBella's fighters are excellent, and I feel like, man, if he can just get them in front of some fans, they're going to develop a fan base, and then it's all downhill from there. So yeah, I think it's great. Fantastic.
I'm actually emailing one of the promoters that works with DiBella. I asked him to come on earlier, and he said he just saw the my invite, so maybe he might join us. Maybe I would imagine. I think they co-promote some of these fighters, but like, yeah, it's some really decent. Like I said, Tierra Brown is one of the fighters that
She's
DiBella
really
has.
good.
She has a real skillful game, and I just think needs a place to be seen and to fight regularly.
Exactly.
I think she could be
Exactly.
exciting. Serrano is, a DiBella fighter. It's a Leonardo 2 might be with this person that I'm trying to talk to right now. So there's some names out there, but like you said, I think if the opportunities are going to be there, it's a chance for the better fights to get put together, or at least to get built up to, and it could catch on.
Definitely. I think that's great.
And then also, I don't know, what you've been. I'm not on Twitter a whole lot, so I don't know. I know the Ring City USA is probably going to be bringing Serrano on in a card or two.
That's right. I don't know about the second one. So if she's going to be on another one, that's great. I know she's I think towards the end of March is when she's fighting, right?
Yeah.
On Ring City. Yeah. Yeah, I'm so excited for that, and I love that they're putting her on. I think that's awesome. And I know, I think when one of their cards, maybe in December, they had a female fight or two on there as well that was televised. So yeah, that is awesome. And I just like the UFC thing. I feel like if we can get more networks, more eyes on boxing, period, but especially women's boxing, we can get more fans involved, more people who care about the sport and want to see it more. And that's what we're looking for. So it's great.
Yeah, and just a quick note about UFC Fight Pass. For people, as you go out here and you have to, the option is that you have to buy some, more subscriptions, for UFC Fight Pass or to a Fight TV. You might want to go directly to the site itself, like that site's or that platform's website, versus just going through Amazon. However you do your streaming, you might want to, for the app, for whatever app you're going to, you might want to go to the that app's website itself. There might be better or more affordable options to buy something. Case in point, I bought UFC last year, UFC Fight Pass, and I bought it through Amazon. The only option was to pay $99 for the year. And there happened to be a couple of fighters getting ready to be on there that I wanted to see, I wanted to write about, I wanted to cover. And so it made sense for me at that moment. But it wasn't a whole lot of fights on there the rest of the year to like make it worth my $99. And then when I went to UFC Fight Pass's website, there was a monthly option. So I'm just saying that to say, go directly to the platform's website. You might find a better option over there for your money. So that's the Yahoo thing. Like I said, keep an eye out for that as more news develops on that. It doesn't look like this guy spends a lot of time on Instagram, so we'll see. But I did want to move on. This weekend is a huge fight. One of the few fights that I had circled for the first half or the first quarter of 2021, and Juan Francisco Estrada and Chocolatito Gonzalez, right? I just call him Chocolatito. Roman Gonzalez.
Yeah.
A lot of skills, a lot of heart, a lot of offense. Super flyweight. I think Estrada might be the WBC.
He is definitely.
WBC. And Chocolatito is WBA.
That sounds right.
That sounds good enough.
That sounds right. I think you're right about that.
The important thing is that it's this weekend. Are you checking this one out?
Absolutely. I've been a huge fan of both these fighters for many, many years. And yeah, I think they first fought, was it 8 years ago? It was longer ago than I realized. I saw that recently and I was like, wow, really? It's been that long?
Who's even fighting championship fights 8 years later?
Yeah, it's amazing. And that's a good point actually about these guys. Yeah, Estrada is 30 years old. And smaller fighters like this, they tend to kind of, for want of a better way of putting it, age faster, right? They tend to get older at a younger age. And he's just going strong, man. It's kind of amazing how much he's improved over that time. And he was already great when he fought Chocolatito the first time. And I feel like 8 years later, he just looks better. And yeah, Gonzalez, I've been a fan of as well. I used to watch him on before he came to HBO. They would sometimes air his fights for free from Nicaraguan TV, I think, online, and I would tune into his fights. My husband and I were just like huge fans, and get the chance to see him in action. So yeah, these guys are tremendous fighters, and I suspect the fight will be all action and super exciting, as all their fights tend to be.
Yeah, I went to go do because I haven't been able doing podcasts and doing daily updates and doing this and then talking about movies and music and stuff. I've gotten away from doing some of my preview articles, and I tried to be brave yesterday and sit down and do a preview article for Chocolatito and Juan Francisco Estrada, and I got I got WordPress open, and I was like, how the hell do you talk about these two? I mean, you just got to watch it. I mean, there's not many weaknesses. I mean, Chocolatito's story, with him coming out of the Sorungva side lost the second one, and how badly he was, to see him get beat like that was stirring. And
that was shocking.
I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
And then the way that he built himself back up, I think he fought once or twice over in Japan, and gradually got back into play. And then a year or so ago, or February of 2020, I had the privilege to go down there to Frisco, Texas, and cover the fight against Cal Yafai. And it was there was some reservations about him being back in the championship level because of, like you said, the wear and tear, him getting a little older. And then he just goes in there and has a phenomenal performance against a world champion.
Yeah. Yeah. And Yafai was undefeated, right? When they fought?
So.
Yeah. Which, yeah, I'm with you. That fight, that performance was amazing. I don't think anyone really expected him to look that good. Even if you thought he might win, I don't think anyone expected him to look that good. That was fantastic. And yeah, it kind of felt like, wow, it's like he got a second wind in his career. It was amazing.
And so, I mean, you don't have to get into your winner if you're, I don't even have a winner at this point.
It's a tough one to pick.
Yeah, I saw they started arriving in Dallas today. Monday is kind of the arrival day and whatnot. I saw them even getting testing and whatnot. So I would imagine we haven't heard any updates on any fights falling out. There's also another super flyweight champion who has the WBO belt, I want to say. I haven't seen him before. But it's actually 3 world title fights on this weekend's DAZN card. With the
you're saying that the WBO champions fighting on the card too?
Yeah, let me get that real quick.
Okay.
No, he's the WB Hiroto Kayoguchi, who's 14 with 9 KOs. He has the WBA belt and the Ring Magazine World. He's at light. I'm sorry, he's at light flyweight. I'm sorry.
Oh, got it. Okay.
He's taking Axel Vega, who's 14-3-1, 8 KOs. So I was right though. Estrada has the WBC, Chocolatito has the WBA, and then the Ring Magazine title will also be up for grabs. And I'll just say this: looking at Estrada coming off of the performance against Sorungva, was like, geez. I mean, if and I said it yesterday or Saturday on my preview of it, if that Estrada shows up, I'm gonna be very concerned for Chocolatito.
Yeah.
Especially early, how he would weather that kind of storm. But then we saw, back in November or whatever it was when they had the doubleheader with Estrada and Quadras too, and then Gonzalez fought. I think it was Israel Gonzalez was who he fought. We saw Quadras have some success against Estrada. So
yeah. But, to be fair, I think Quadras is a tremendous fighter who I think is kind of understated. I think a lot of people don't give him the credit he deserves, and former champion and everything, and I believe a longtime champion when he did have the belt. But I'm with you. But on the other hand, yeah, Quadras had some success, but the way, Estrada was able to stop him, and nobody's ever stopped him before. He's a durable guy and a very good boxer. So I was stunned by that. I was like, I did not expect that.
Yeah, I think I'm just encouraging people to tune in. I think it's an excellent fight. A lot of skill, a lot of great offense. I think it's a healthy, like vicious rivalry. Like both of these guys are coming to stop one another, but it's still on some real gentleman stuff.
Yeah. They are. They both seem very gentlemanly and respectful. And yeah, I'm with you. This is the kind of fight that I feel like I want people to see who don't watch boxing. Like if you're not sure if you like boxing or you're not sure if you would be open to it, this is the kind of fight I want you to watch because I think you'll become a fan.
Right. So do you think it? I mean, do you have a winner, or you just kind of still putting it together?
I don't know, man. That's a tough fight to call. I think on paper and logically, Estrada, he's the younger, slightly fresher fighter. But like we were just talking about when Gonzalez fought Yafai, it's like he turned back the clock. So I think it's a really tough one to call.
Yeah, and I think like we always say, styles make fights and styles make matchups. I don't think even though Estrada did what he did against Rungvisai, I don't think he presents the same challenges to Chocolatito that Rungvisai presented to Chocolatito. So I think this is, just going to be a great fight. Do you think it goes the distance?
That's a great question. Man, you asked me all these tough questions today. I don't know. I really don't know. That's almost a tougher question than who wins. Because they both, especially Chocolatito, have a lot of knockouts, right? So they do, even for being super flyweights, they do have a lot of power. And I don't know. I think Estrada, you're right. His style is totally different than Rungvisai, but in a way, it makes him more dangerous, in my opinion, because his use of angles is just tremendous to me. And it's crazy, right? And his footwork and all, he's able to just get in these positions that it almost looks like how are you even doing that? How are you able to get there, especially against the opposition he's fighting? So that could pose some major issues for Chocolatito, I think. And to be fair, I do think Gonzalez is past his prime.
Yeah.
But so far at least, he's been able to still hang in there and kind of be on the tail end of that. So yeah, we'll see if he still has enough to pull this out. But I don't know. I don't know if it goes the distance. It's very possible it doesn't, but it might.
I think somebody's gonna have to get up off the canvas once. Either one of them. Somebody's gonna have to get up once.
I think so. Yeah.
And try to make it a fight.
At least we might even have multiple knockdowns, and it might be that kind of fight. Yeah, I'm with you there. I think that's a sure thing. I was going to ask
you over and under 2 knockdowns, but I thought that'd be another tough question.
That's another tough one, but yeah, it's very possible. I'll just say that, which is super exciting.
I think in looking at my winner, it comes down to if Estrada fights his fight. And if his legs are just too much of an advantage for Chocolatito, who wants to get to him and, wants to get the body work and work up and down and all of that stuff. But if Estrada is not there to be worked up and down, then that's where I think he's going to have his advantage. And but like I said, I don't even, as a writer and a media guy, I don't even want to influence anybody on the fight other than to just tune in and be entertained.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. Even if you make a pick and you're educated and thoughtful about it, you could totally be wrong. It's that kind of fight. So yeah, I'm with you. I think it's a tremendous fight, and I love that the smaller fighters are getting a little bit more attention these days. They're on more networks and streaming platforms because there are just some amazing fighters down there, and these guys are two of the best.
Definitely. The other rematch on here from just last year with Cecilia Braekhus and Jessica McCaskill. Jessica McCaskill took her 4 belts. Let me check back to see if my man responded. He did not. First of all, who did you have McCaskill winning the first fight in Tulsa?
I did. Yeah, I did. I thought it was.
Do you remember your scores?
I don't, but I think I had it fairly close. But I did think she won. Yeah.
Okay.
How about you? You didn't?
Boxing, like the way that boxing typically goes, I thought the champion did enough to retain her titles. I don't know if she did enough to win, and that's why I didn't get too upset. She didn't. She clearly didn't do enough to not make it a question, and I think she had the size, the experience, and that pedigree and all of that stuff to do that. And for whatever reason, she didn't. And then there was a smaller fighter coming up. So I really couldn't get too mad about it. I just was kind of shocked to see a reigning champion that it went that way. But maybe it was supposed to. But
I mean, I could be wrong, but I thought that the reason it went that way was kind of classic. You said it earlier, styles make fights. I was like, McCaskill came in with the exact right game plan. She knew, she didn't have the boxing pedigree and experience that Braekhus did, and she just dogged her. And she, went on the inside and just roughed her up. And I thought that was an awesome game plan, and she executed it very well. It was messy at times and all that, but that's kind of what a rough fight becomes. And I thought it was perfect because it clearly made Braekhus so uncomfortable. And I don't think she's used to fighting anything like that, right? And that's
at all.
Often the case for European fighters, and they're kind of used to everything being kind of clean and proper, right? And if you don't fight that kind of fight, it can often throw them for a loop. So yeah, I loved that she used that tactic, because I was like, I don't think she can outbox Braekhus, but she could outfight her, and that's what she did.
I used a football analogy. When it's quarterbacks, they talk about a clean pocket. And they have a nice halo around them to where nobody's touching their ankles or hitting their knees or something and making them uncomfortable and taking their focus away from going through their progressions. And it was just she didn't have a clean pocket to to jab and move and all that stuff. She was up in her chest, and it just bothered her. So how do you see the I think this again, I think the rivalry that sprouted out of this, I give Braekhus a lot of credit that she decided to come back versus hiring. I like that in her. But I don't know if you saw her fight before that one. She fought another smaller fighter who was coming up. I want to say it was Mario Barrios' sister. Maybe.
Oh, Selena, right? I think her name's Selena.
It might not have been her. It might not have been her, but it was a smaller fighter who was coming up. And she did the same thing, no, it
wasn't her. Victoria Bustos?
Is that the fighter you're thinking? Yeah, I'm sorry. Okay. I was thinking B with the bar. Yeah, it was Bustos. She did not. Bustos just wasn't as. She didn't have as much dog in her as McCaskill does, so she didn't get the decision. So that's why I thought, McCaskill's style and game plan could work. But how do you see this one playing out? The rematch.
Yeah, that's a little bit tough to call. I think, it's very possible that Braekhus, with her experience and, very good, clean boxing skill, is able to learn from the first fight and come back and figure out how to keep McCaskill off of her so that she can utilize the jab and kind of keep her on the outside of her shots. I think that might be what happens. but I also feel like, on the other hand, McCaskill, she's been in the gym, I'm sure, trying to even further improve her game and make it so that she's harder and harder to deny. So if she's able to do that, I think she wins again, because I don't think, Braekhus, she may try to work on her inside game a little bit and all that so she can better deal with McCaskill, but she's not going to learn that in one camp. She spent her whole career fighting, pure boxing and kind of being able to do that. And if McCaskill's able to get on the inside and rough her up again, and if she can do it even better, more efficiently without getting hit as much, yeah, that bodes well for McCaskill. But yeah, it kind of just depends to me on which fighter is better able to adjust to what the other one did. If Braekhus wasn't able to change anything, then I think it's McCaskill again. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of seeing with the same situation with Decare not being able to, be what she's never been against the best person she's ever fought. And I kind of don't see Braekhus. I think you'll know in the first 3 or 4 rounds. And then, she's older. I think she's 39. And I think she's 39.
I think that's right. Yeah.
I just don't see her. What was I heard a quote a couple of weeks ago, like, I think Braekhus will be willing to cooperate with McCaskill. McCaskill just needs to give her something to cooperate with. And I see that playing out. Any excitement? Yeah. Any excitement in the I saw OJ3, Otha Jones III, his brother texted me over the weekend, and he came down with something. So I think he's off the card. He wasn't, his fight was scratched from the box rec posting for it. But Ammo is fighting Dennis Doglin. I think on paper that's a good step up fight for him. But again, I talked about it Saturday when I watched Doglin against Mike Guy. I don't know what the hell was going on with Doglin. So who knows what he does? But he needs the fight. He needs the win, actually. And then a kid that I'm very excited about is Southpaw featherweight. I think Raymond Ford has a lot of skills. Like I said, Southpaw, quickness, good power. He's fighting an undefeated fighter. So it looks like I'm excited about the card.
It's a great card. Yeah. And, even if you just look at the main event and the Braekhus McCaskill rematch, those are 2 excellent fights and arguably some of the best we've seen for the past year. So just having those 2 alone on the same card is awesome. So adding these other ones to the undercard, yeah, that's exciting. It's awesome.
I'll get ready to get you out of here. I just got an update on dinner, so
okay.
I don't want to get some nasty texts before I get off of here. But I did want to. Yeah, it was Austin Williams against Doglin. Raymond Ford is fighting Aaron Perez, who's also 10-0. I want to say Raymond Ford fought a cat his last fight, which was like 2 or 3 months ago. That guy had never been stopped, I want to say, and Ford knocked him out. So, like I said, I want to see more of Ford. He's one of those guys. I think he has a lot of talent, a lot of ability, but he's over here on the zone and not getting as much, credit as some of the other, prospects, up and comers who are able to fight on ESPN Plus or some of the PBC stuff, like Jesus Ramos, up at 140. Right. But I did want to get your thoughts on the Showtime card. I'm very excited about, seeing Benavidez. I don't know what. I think, didn't Ellis fight DeAndre Ware?
He sure did. I think that was his last fight, actually.
Yeah. So he's been inactive a little while. And I think it's just a big jump up to David Benavidez, who's a very talented offensive guy. I don't know if we get many surprises in the main event, but I think it's definitely a good fight for Benavidez to kind of reestablish himself in the championship picture. I know he said earlier today or yesterday he would stop Canelo. I definitely would love to see that fight at some point. But I think the rest of the body of this card is very exciting. In lightweight, Isaac Cruz against Matias Romero. And then I didn't even realize this, but 2 Ohio guys at super welterweight. They have it on here, contenders. I don't know about contenders. They're there though. But Olympian Terrell Goucher against Jamonte Clark. I think that's an excellent card.
It's very good. It's very solid. I was wrong, by the way, about Ronald Ellis. He fought Korobov in his last fight. I don't know if you remember that. It was really surprising because Korobov, who's an
You're right.
excellent boxer, I think he got an injury in like the first round. At the end of the first round, they had to call the fight because of that. So it was just a little bit
I thought
anticlimactic.
I thought that was Cordell Booker. I'm sorry.
Nope. Ronald Ellis and Korobov. Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. Korobov hurt his ankle in that fight. That's what he did.
Okay. And then also, I don't want to forget Wednesday night, we have the Showbox card with Brandon Lee. So I think it's an excellent week of boxing. It's actually it's a quadruple header on Wednesday night.
Nice.
So it's a lot of great action this week.
I love boxing during the week. That's it's like a special treat in the middle of the week. I love that. And yeah, about the Benavidez fight, I'm with you. I think it's a good comeback fight for Benavidez. By all accounts, he's, making weight and in good shape and everything coming into this fight. So that's great. And yeah, with Ellis, I think this is a huge step up. But you never know until they get in there with somebody like that. So he might surprise us. I was actually able to talk to David Benavidez's trainer, who's also his dad, Jose Benavidez Sr., for an upcoming article on PBC. And yeah, he was just saying, David is in great shape and like super focused mentally. So yeah, I think we might see a really good Benavidez on Saturday.
He has a newborn, that's maybe 5 months old or something. So I think that's always a good sign when some of these guys gives
them something to kind of be disciplined for.
Right. Right. So you're right. It was Korobov. I'm trying to think who's that Cordell. I had it wrong. I can't be right about every damn thing. So I didn't have much more to talk about. I do want to see. What are your thoughts on Gausha and Jamonte Clark? I know you're familiar with both of them.
I'm familiar with them. I think that's a really good fight. It's just one of those fights that I think is well matched. There, neither guy is like, heads and tails favorite over the other, which is, I always really appreciate that. No matter whether it's a high level fight or not, I just like to see fair fights made. And that one seems that way to me. It seems like a, very evenly matched type of fight.
And I like it that like neither one of them can really afford to lose.
Exactly.
It's well matched, and neither one of them can afford to lose.
Exactly. So, that always adds drama and excitement, right? So it should be great.
I think Gausha, I think the one thing that's troubled him is just getting into that third or fourth gear, earlier in the fight before he's too far behind or just being, fighting comfortably. So, and I think, Clark hasn't been, he came out of that Fundora fight, which I thought he won or at least earned a draw. But he's got to, like I said, neither one of these guys can lose. And then Isaac Cruz is just he's good. He's good boxing. I mean, he's violent, and explosive and all of that type stuff. There was one other.
Fun card.
With you being at PBC and doing some work over there, what's up with the like we're just getting like a week and a half heads up that these fights are coming together and whatnot. So, any reason what's going on with the scheduling? Is something on the horizon, like the schedule for the rest of the year or anything?
I unfortunately don't have any inside information for you. I wish I did. But yeah, I don't know. I kind of just, and I've seen other people say this too. I get the feeling we're going to have like some big, type of, long-term schedule announcement before too long, but I don't know.
Okay. Well, what do you think is
I'm no help on that one.
I tried. But what do you think is going on though with the relation? I mean, just if you can speak on it, what's your thoughts on the relationships with Showtime and Fox I know there's some grumbling and some gripes out there about Ruiz and Areola likely going to pay-per-view and whatnot. I don't think that's been confirmed yet. But again, here with the Showtime cards, we only got like a week and a half confirmation on the Broner fight. Here with Benavidez, it kind of came out of nowhere. Is it just they're just trying to hold on to see if this COVID situation turns around, and they know they'll be able to plan fights and get tickets sold.
Fans there. Yeah,
Fans
exactly.
there.
I mean, I don't know the answer to that either, but I suspect it's probably something like that related to the COVID situation. And yeah, trying to, like you say, kind of hold out and see, can we get some fans in arenas or not? And I mean, if you think about it from their perspective, I would think you would want to wait until the last minute as long as you could to find that out, because it might change your venue, right? So I think the Showtime bubble is in Connecticut.
Yes.
So, if they're able to have fans come to fights, then that could very likely change their venue and where they're holding the fight. So it might be something like that, but I'm not sure.
Do you think boxing has gotten enough credit for what it's tried to do in going through this? Like, they don't have the luxury of a TV deal, to hold everything together in the background. I mean, they got to go out here and do this wisely and not lose their shirts, but still put some things together. We're getting on May 22nd, we're getting a 140-pound unification fight. Hell, we're getting like 3 Canelo fights in 30 weeks or something, by the time he goes in there against BJ Saunders. Do you think that boxing really fans haven't taken a moment away from complaining to really appreciate what they have tried to do in light of what they've been going through?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of truth to that. I mean, I think it's easy to kind of look at the negative in any situation, right? And feel like, well, we're not getting as many great matchups this year as in prior years or whatever. But you're right. If you actually look at some of the fights we're getting, they're pretty great. And in light of the COVID situation, I feel like, yeah, the fighters and everyone involved should be getting credit for that. To your point, no, I don't think they're getting the credit they deserve. I don't think the sport is getting the credit they deserve for it. I mean, especially last year, I think boxing started up again in like June.
June.
And was on ESPN like week after week. And I felt like it was kind of carrying all of sports, and nobody was really talking about that. So I think it's important. And yeah, the risks too. I think people don't think about the risks the fighters are taking and their teams are taking to be around other people like that in an enclosed area, and just in an effort to wield your craft and earn a payday. But I feel like, yeah, that's huge too.
Yeah, sadly. Well, look, I could talk all night, and I'm glad that you came on for these 93 minutes that you have. But I did just get the text that it's time to eat.
Duty calls. Thank you for having me. It was great.
Yeah, it's good talking to you. We haven't spoken since last year sometime, and like I said, I was working on some upgrades to the platform and whatnot. And I'm like,
looking good there, looking spiffy.
Thank you. Like, let me get my my old colleague on here, and she's the perfect person, for such a weekend. So I appreciate
it. Yeah, thank you. This was great.
So
I had a great time.
Thanks. Again, you can check out Caryn Tate online at boxingnoir.com. She also has content at premierboxingchampions.com. Is that the website? It's not PBC or Premier Boxing.
It's spelled out. Yeah. It's the whole thing.
Premierboxingchampions.com. And then you can check her out on Twitter. You want to get that out real quick?
Yeah. It's at Caryn A. Tate, just all spelled out, one word. And I also have my own website, which is CarynATate.com.
Got you. Before you do go, have you been checking out? I know Caryn actually wrote her own comic for a while, right?
For years, yeah.
For years. Were you a fan of this WandaVision? Have you checked it out?
I loved WandaVision. I loved it. I thought it was awesome. Are you finished with it? Are you still watching?
Nah, somebody wanted me to. Somebody was asking me to look into it. You know, I talk about shows and on the channel sometime. You know, somebody was like, "Are you going to get to that one?" And I'm like, "I didn't plan on it, but if you're giving it the stamp of approval, I guess I'll tune in. I'll
Especially
find a way
now that it's over, and if you get Disney Plus, you can watch them all back to back. I think it's tremendous. I was surprised, actually. I love the Marvel movies, so I thought I would like it, but I didn't expect to love it, and I really did. I thought it's at first, like the first couple episodes are kind of odd.
Yeah.
But you're trying to kind of figure out what is going on here, and there's this sense of impending like doom throughout it, and so the whole time I was like super intrigued, like where are they going with this? What's happening? And then as they go, they did a great job of just kind of giving you enough information as you go to start kind of developing your own hypothesis about what's going on. And at least for me, I was wrong about what I thought was happening. And it's just, and then as it goes, it's like the movies does, or the movies do. The writing is like super touching and just very emotional in a good way. They're great at the characterization and everything. But yeah, I thought the storytelling was awesome. Actually, I was surprised. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm gonna check it out then.
I recommend it. Yeah. Let me know what you think when you see it.
Will do. I'll get you back on here when you're free. Again, I am trying to stick to Sunday mornings, which could be a little challenging because you're up in Washington. Does that work? Washington?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Seattle area. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I'd be happy to. Just let me know. Sorry, Wood, you froze there. You still there?
Or sorry. Yeah. I was just gonna say I'll sneak on the Twitter to see what your cards.
Oh yeah. Please do. And yeah, I'll be all over the judging. So, hopefully the judges do a good job.
I'm counting on it. I'm counting on it.
Thank you, Wood. I appreciate you having me.
Let me get up here before I get yelled at.
Awesome. Thanks.
Hey, that's Caryn Tate, man. One of my favorite people in boxing. A lot of positivity, a lot of attention to detail. A real stickler on how fights are scored, the judging and whatnot regularly. So I appreciate that too. And she just kind of brings a vibe to the sport that's like for the culture, in my opinion. Let me get on out of here, man. Bite Down Boxing. Don't let them count you out. Enjoy the fights this week. Wednesday night showtime, 9 p.m. Eastern time. And then the Zone and Showtime Saturday. I'm out.